All right. Hello, Amanda. So glad to have you with us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you. I wanted to jump right in because the theme of our month is all about rest. Our theme of the year for us at Black Girl Burnout is all about New Year healed me, being the most healed version of ourselves. And we know when we're in the midst of healing, the most important aspect of that is rest. And so that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you today to talk about your book, The Rest Revolution, and to get into some of the concepts and how we as Black women can prioritize rest more in our lives. And to that point, I want to talk a little bit about in the book, you cover this concept of the machine mindset, right? Where you
Mhm.
explore the idea of like how we as people, we lose our humanity when we try to fit into this box of what it means to be productive and what it means to go, go, go. And so,
Mhm.
how can we first of all, can you describe a little bit more about what that is and how we can begin to deprogram from that so we can shift into thriving and shift into rest?
So, machine mindset is really a concept that came to me after studying how work evolved, especially in Western societies after the Industrial Revolution and the introduction of actual machines and steam power and electric power, etc. And there are a number of, I guess, management thinkers who started to ponder how as we moved from an agricultural society to more of an industrial society, how to organize work and workers. And so one of the most famous of those thinkers was a mechanical engineer by the name of Frederick Taylor, who rose to prominence really by helping companies figure out the what he called the one best way to do a task and to increase worker efficiency and productivity. And what was striking to me was that here's a person who's being brought into companies to show employers how to get their workers to um, create and produce more efficiently, but he's using his background as a mechanical engineer. Mechanical engineers engineer machines. And so essentially, that was where I saw the beginning of us going from people to machines in this broad way. And so I think when you understand that that was something that, it had its benefits, obviously, but it really is something that's layering over what it means to be successful at work in a really big way. And that has been in play for, over a century at this point. And so the machine mindset is essentially, okay, let me be as productive as a machine. Like that was the goal of Taylor's work, going into these companies and advising them on how to eke out the most productivity from a worker in the least amount of time. And I think when you start to embody those ideals of I need to work faster, I need to work smarter, I need to work flawlessly with perfection like a machine, that really starts to negate your humanity because human beings are not meant to operate that way. I'm not saying that like we should be making mistakes and getting nothing
Right.
done at all. But I think when you set yourself up against that standard, it's a recipe for burnout.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, to all of that. And it makes sense that machines also, even machines need to be battery operated, they need to power
Mhm.
up and all those things, but they don't have the considerations that humans do, right? So to work
Absolutely.
efficiently and to work flawlessly, they don't need to take breaks. They don't need to, drink water. The things that differentiate, and conversely, like there's things that machines are missing out because you said the one best way, but it takes a
Right.
human to figure out there are many ways to arrive to that, and we can iterate or even improve a way, and all of that gets missing when it's like, just do it and do it over and over and over again. And so that makes a lot of sense. And it does make sense that the way that's shown up in the way we work and the way we live our lives is that we take this unnecessary burden on ourselves to take on
Mm.
more and to do things as good as possible, do things perfect. We develop perfectionism tendencies. And then it's like, being able to leave that behind, it's not surprising that you're going to end up burnt out when that's where you're starting, right?
Right.
And so how do you deprogram that? Like how do you let go of that mindset?
That's the question of the century, right? I think it first starts with really reclaiming your humanity and tussling with the notion that, okay, yes, I want to be great at my job. Yes, I want to have a great career. But at what point am I going to place the same amount of weight, if not more weight, on my level of happiness and the joy that I have in my life? I think that, you know, over the last, few generations, as far back as, I can recall, but also from what I've gathered from family members who are still with us and those that have passed on, work has just really taken an oversized place of value in so many of our lives. And I think deprogramming starts with that true, mirror moment, like looking at yourself in the mirror and examining, like, what am I doing and what is really taking up the energy in my life, the time in my days, and if I am devoting so much of my precious energy and time to work and work alone, is it giving me the return that I need? So I think it's almost a reckoning. And I feel like we are having that collectively. We are collectively wrestling with that question of, okay, I have devoted most of my focus to becoming a professional and to developing my career at the expense of what? Um, my hobbies, my health, my relationships. And I think, when you talk about deprogramming, for many people, that comes as a result of a burnout breaking point, which is usually a health crisis or a family emergency. It's not always an introspective moment of reckoning. It is a forced moment of reprioritization. And so I hope that people listening to this and people who are reading The Rest Revolution can intentionally and voluntarily take that moment of reflection instead of being forced to reprioritize their health, their relationships, and their sources of joy.
Yeah, we don't want a crisis to be the reason why we
Yeah.
make these shifts. And it
But so
really is
often it is.
so often is. I'm most people's
Mhm.
burnout stories that there's some crisis that happens. And so this is an opportunity to reflect and create time for that. And part of reflection is the need for rest, hence our theme for the month. And also you talk about this, there's maybe the opportune time because we happen to be recording and this will be aired in winter time. And so
Yes.
you talk about the power of a winter and that can help. How can that be an invitation to do exactly what you just said about how to let go of machine mindset?
Oh, I love the fact that we are recording this in winter, and I'm obsessed with winter as a season right now. I talk about this in the book and the concept of purposecaping, which is a seasonal metaphor. It's a seasonal lens to really look at your life and your work, your relationships, your parenting. It's really anything that you want to examine, but there are seasons to every cycle of life for living beings, and I think that human beings, because of machine mindset, have, started to think that we don't operate as beings in nature when there is a season to seed, a season to sprout, a season to bloom, a season to wilt for everything and everyone that breathes. And so winter, metaphorically, when you're not talking about the winter of your life, like the end of your life, but on a more cyclical nature, winter is the season to rest. It's the season to reflect on the last 3 seasons that have passed. And it's a season to make decisions about what you will carry forth into your next spring planting season, what you will leave behind, what needs to be changed, amended, what needs to be increased or amplified. But it's a time to really get clear on what's working and what's not working so that you can move forward with clarity. And I think that, I talk about in the book about repeatedly skipping winter is one of the ways that we set ourselves up for burnout, because so many of us, we just want to bloom, right? Because blooming is fun. That's when the awards and the accolades and the money and all the great things happen. But it requires more of us. No season is wasted. And winter is not a luxury. It's not something that we can choose to observe or choose to experience. It's a necessary season for all living beings.
Yeah, I think it's great that we're bringing that into conversation, because I do think people want to skip winter. And if it's not skipping winter, it's just this negative connotation around winter. No one wants to be cold. No one wants to feel like, if you're in a place that has four seasons and it's snowing, it's like there are people who dread winter for the fact that it feels like a limitation, right? The things that they can and cannot do. And instead, it's a positive way to reframe it as an opportunity to reflect and rest and store up for what's next, and also step out of that machine mindset by being in tune with nature and being in tune organically with what's going on around you. And so my invitation for our folks is, if you're listening to this in real time and it's winter, rest, but there can be micro winter moments in your life where you're building in that concept of rest and reflection. Don't think pauses or setbacks as negative, but as opportunities potentially to think about growth and think about the reset and reflection.
I love that term that you used, invitation. It really is. Winter is an invitation to go inward. It's an invitation to assess. It's an invitation to look at, to stop and look at. Yes, rest. Yes, restore yourself and get the rest that you need, but also examine, look at what is working and what is not.
Absolutely. And that's going to bring us to, once we've rested a little bit, we need to understand about purpose, but we also need to understand the other layer to rest. That for those of you who are saying, being like, this feels so passive, this feels so like I need to be more active. When we come back, we're going to talk about purposescaping, and we're going to talk about rest as resistance, as an actual active thing that you can be doing in your life. So more to come with Amanda Miller Littlejohn as we get into purposescaping and rest as resistance.